A black grandfather clock on a Johannesburg wall struck 6 on a freezing July morning, when 71-year-old Nomvula Tshabalala opened her front gate and froze. A brand-new black Mercedes sat crooked across her lawn with the engine still purring, and a handwritten note was folded under the wiper. She shuffled forward on knees that had failed her 2 winters ago, bent down with the same back she had used to lift dish crates for 41 years, and read 3 pencil words that turned her hands white. You remembered me. She had no idea who was inside. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment with your city and country so I know who is listening with me today. 11 years before that morning, Nomvula was 58, widowed, and finishing a late shift at St. Andrew's College in Pretoria. She was on her knees mopping the cafeteria tile when she heard a shallow breath behind the industrial dish racks. A black boy of about 15 was crouched in the dark, his shirt torn at the collar, his shoes held together with electrician's tape, his hands shaking too hard to lift a glass. He had not eaten in 3 days because his uncle had stopped paying school fees and the hostel kitchen had locked him out of breakfast. Nomvula did not call the headmaster. She did not call security. She pulled him up by the wrist, walked him into the staff kitchen, locked the back door, and lifted her own packed dinner out of her thermos. Samp and beans with a small piece of boiled chicken her daughter Nomsa had wrapped at dawn. The boy ate without lifting his head. Before he ran, she tore a scrap of brown receipt paper from her apron and wrote 7 words in faded blue ballpoint. Education is the only inheritance I can give you. She slipped him 50 rand saved for her own taxi ride and pressed a clean shirt from her grandson's duffel into his arms because his was soaked with sweat and Joburg winter rain. He turned once at the back gate, and the cold night swallowed him for good. Nomvula caught her taxi home. She raised Nomsa alone after burying her husband from a stroke he had never told her about. She washed dishes at the same school until her knees gave out. The school gave her a retirement tea with rooibos and a thank you card. She walked home that afternoon, believing she had helped nobody at all. Meanwhile, that starving boy crossed into Mozambique with no passport and no money. His name was Tendai Moyo. He worked in a granite mine near Beira for 3 years, sleeping in a tin shed with 11 men who smelled of dust and cheap brandy. He taught himself to code by candle flame on a borrowed laptop, built a cross-border payment app between Maputo and Harare, and scaled it quietly into a $400 million remittance platform before his 35th birthday. Every single night for 11 years, Tendai pulled that folded receipt paper from a worn leather wallet and read those 7 words aloud before he closed his eyes. He never told a single soul. Not his partners, not the woman he married in Cape Town, not even his own mother, who had passed away, still believing her son was a failure. The year he sold the company, Tendai hired a private investigator in Sandton and gave them one single instruction: find the dishwasher at St. Andrew's College in Pretoria, who fed me her dinner in 2014. It took 14 months of patient searching. The school had no surviving staff records. The kitchen had been rebuilt twice. The investigator finally located her through an old pension payout form. Nomvula had moved into a tiny 2-room house in Soweto with no social media, no landline, and the same Methodist church choir in Orlando West she had been singing in for 38 years. On that freezing July morning, Nomvula opened her gate, expecting nobody, and saw a tall African man in a tailored black suit standing beside the Mercedes. He stepped back with trembling lips and said it again. "Ma'am, I have been looking for you for 11 years. She searched his face and found nothing. He reached into his breast pocket and lifted out a small framed square of brown paper sealed in clear plastic. Nomvula's hand flew to her chest. Her fingers trembled as she read her own faded blue ink. "Education is the only inheritance I can give you," she whispered without breathing. "My child, you kept it." Tendai nodded through his tears and told her what she had never known. That night, he had been walking toward the railway bridge with the intention of ending his life. The samp and beans, the clean shirt, and those 7 words in blue ink had been the only reason he turned around at the gate. Nomvula covered her face and cried until her knees gave out. Tendai caught her before she hit the ground. The two of them sat at her small kitchen table for the next 4 hours, while Tendai listened to every story about Nomsa, about her husband, about 41 years of standing on wet floors in someone else's kitchen. Before he left, he handed her one cream envelope and asked her to open it only after he was back in his car. Inside, Nomvula found the signed deed to a 4-bedroom house with a garden in Houghton, 6 minutes from Nomsa's flat. She found the paperwork for a permanent scholarship fund in her name for Zimbabwean immigrant grandmothers working night shifts in South African schools. And she found one final, handwritten note on fresh brown receipt paper. "You saved me with 7 words on a scrap of paper. I am only returning what was always yours." News of their reunion spread across Gauteng in 10 days. Schools began tucking paper slips inside donated winter uniforms. Universities invited Nomvula to speak at graduations. Nomsa quit her job to run the bursary full-time. Tendai is often introduced on stage as a self-made billionaire. He always corrects the host before the applause. "I am not self-made. A Zimbabwean grandmother with bad knees and a wooden spoon saved my life with samp and beans and 7 words in blue ink." Nomvula never calls herself a hero. She still wakes at 5 to cook for her church choir every Sunday. Her prayer has not changed in 41 years. "Lord, let me be useful to one more person today." So next time you walk past the cleaning or kitchen staff at your office or your school, please remember Nomvula's story. One small act of kindness could be the only thing standing between someone and giving up tonight. If this story moved you, please share it with one person today who needs to hear it. And hit subscribe so we can keep telling true stories like this every week. Narration direction, single narrator only. James. Voice only. Cinematic storytelling style. Slightly fast pacing, equivalent to about 1.3x. Keep pauses to an absolute minimum. Maintain one consistent voice from start to end. No dialogue cast switching. No extra speakers.